Greetings, brethren, and a happy Sabbath to you on this 19th day of the 10th month. It's the 10th day of January 2015 on the pagan Roman calendar. And today, we're on earlier today, friends, because we wanted to make the program available for those in the UK and other parts around the world where the Sabbath comes hours earlier, many hours earlier. And today I have something very special. I'm going to be playing in just a few moments a 1-minute excerpt from a Bible study that Mr. Armstrong gave, in which he encourages us to take what he printed in the Good News and in the Worldwide News and also in a Pastor General's report on the 1,260 days, the 1,290 days, and the 1,335 days of Daniel 12. And in this video, you'll hear him encourage us to put these things together with the Great Tribulation and all of the prophecies related to the time period that represents the few months and years just before the return of Jesus Christ. You'll hear him say, put these together, put all of these things together that relate to these prophecies. Now, some have taken, and will take, some I've shared this with, have taken this as a suggestion, and in a certain way it is. It's an encouragement. It's actually an instruction. One of my friends, though, wrote me back and said, well, it's kind of like Mr. Armstrong saying, if you do this, that's the condition. But he didn't say what will happen if you in fact do it. And if you do it, what's the conclusion there, Tom? The result would probably be you will be wise if you do this, because we're told the wise will understand, as Daniel put it, regarding the 1,335 days. The wise will understand. Well, if we're going to be wise, we better be, as Mr. Armstrong told us, put these things together, be looking into them, be on our knees. He'll say in a report I'll share with you after the video, it's a time to be praying and fasting and asking God for this wisdom and asking God to help us watch what we should be watching. And that's twofold. Primarily, it was in context with Luke 21, where he told us to watch the events he was describing, the first four seals. We're seeing those in news daily so much that, friends, I have to really pick and choose what we put on the Nightcast World Watch program Sunday through Thursday nights to keep it in within 1 hour or 45 minutes or a half hour as we originally were wanting to do it. But many of you are telling me, Steve, go ahead with an hour program. Many television programs are 1 hour news programs today. Sometimes I do have to spill over, although I try to pack it in if we can and give the meaning behind the world news too, as how it relates to the Bible and prophecy. And I have people watching this program who have not been in the church before, so I have to keep that in mind. But since it is a program related to the Bible and prophecy, I have to mention the purposes or the connections to the Bible and prophecy of each news story. And I'm learning how to do that. It's, carrying on a little bit with what Mr. Armstrong gave us, giving back what he gave us, and keeping daily with it. He died in 1986. We still got his sermons, thankfully, and Bible studies and broadcasts we can listen to, but we also need to relate that to what's currently going on in the day. Christ told us to watch what's happening with these events that are unfolding in prophecy every day now. So I do something that helps people a little bit with that. Maybe some of you have told me you appreciate it, and I appreciate you letting me know that. And those of you that tune in here for the various reasons you tune in on the Sabbath, whether you go fellowship with others or not, and I'm going to be slipping out here to do that. One thing, getting on extra early, as I've done this Sabbath morning, which I'm not quite awake as I'd like to be. I would have liked to have slept in longer. It's also very cold, and it's nice to stay in a nice warm bed when it's cold. You're welcome to watch from a warm bed if you want to. That's fine with me. But I'm going fellowship with a couple of handicapped fellows. At least one of them's handicapped, legally blind. The other one believes God may be healing him, and I hope so for his sake. He's had a disability since he was a teenager and has been in the church with his parents since he was a teenager, and has just came to accept the fact that after many anointings, God wasn't healing him for some reason. But he feels like now God may be beginning to heal something for him. Problem with his knee, problem with his elbow and arm. He's been able to hold some jobs, but he's learned to be really sharp with computers because he has physical limitations. But I'm going to go down, and we're getting together and going to a place where we can all sit down together and just fellowship at a buffet pizza place today. $5, all-you-can-eat pizza, and tables, and we can just talk and spend some good time together. So let's get to this. This excerpt in video here is from a study that Mr. Armstrong gave in Pasadena on July 19, 1980. In the let me just look at some notes I have on this. In this 1-minute video, now I'll be back after it's just a 1-minute thing. After he gives you the encouragement, I'll be back to share with you what he wrote in his PGR report of 1979, November 20, and in later publications of the Good News on the 1335, the 1290, and the 1260 days mentioned by Daniel, and some of that's mentioned in other places in the Bible too. Let's watch Mr. Armstrong speaking on this briefly in this 1-minute video excerpt from the 1980 Bible study in Pasadena. This is just a 1-minute excerpt, and I'll be back.
Now take what I've printed some 4, 5, 6 months ago now. I believe it was in the Worldwide News or in the Good News. I had the 1260, the 1290, and the 1335 days of Daniel 12. Put some of those things together. Put a lot of these things together into the Great Tribulation. And all of these prophecies, they're all beginning to come in and fit into a certain picture right now. We've never had them straightened out before. I never claimed I've got everything straightened out yet. But God has revealed truth to me and is still revealing truth to me. And it's about time a lot of us begin to wake up and realize that. Because if it's truth, you better get in on it.
20 minutes. Hey, I just got a phone call, brethren, from one of the fellows that I'll be meeting with a little bit later, and even while I'm live, I'm just going to be explaining to him that, Sam, I'll be leaving here in about 20 minutes, and that should put me over there to meet up with you at around 11, a little after 11. We'll have time to catch up with Dan, where he'll be getting out at 11:30. And you're welcome to stand by if you want to and listen to the rest of this, or just, well, actually, this is, you caught me on my 25 cent a minute phone, so I'll see you. I'll be leaving here in about 20 minutes. And brethren, let's see. I should have let my friend say hello to you there. Let me let's see what happened. Okay, you're going to get part of my computer screen here if I come in tight, because we just lost our player. Let me see if I can bring that back up. Okay. Brethren, I want to share with you real quickly the things from the PGR report and the good news that Mr. Armstrong mentioned in this video. From the September 20, 1979 Pastor General's report, where a section entitled "The Time We Are In Now," Mr. Armstrong says, "Never before have we understood these periods of 1260, 1290, and 1335 days." I think he said that in this clip of the video too. But it seems evident now, a blessing is pronounced on us, God's church, who wait and endure until the 1335 days, approximately 1335 days prior to Christ's coming. Mr. Armstrong says in the PGR report, he goes on to say, but since no one can know the day or the hour of his coming, we probably shall not be able to know the exact day this 1335 days begins. But apparently, that is the time when our work shall end. That will be a time, in a certain way, friends, Mr. Armstrong's work continues since God has preserved his recordings. Wish I had a picture. Let's see if I can get that back up here. God has preserved Mr. Armstrong's Bible studies, his broadcast, his sermons. They're available all over the internet, and that's a wonderful, wonderful blessing for all of us, and for others whom God might call. That material's out there. God, just and is well preserved. So in one way, the work has not ended, because it's as if Mr. Armstrong speaks from the grave. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they all died, but God's got their works and words preserved in the Bible. So, same kind of difference. That will be a time when, back to his PGR report, that will be a time when the United Europe shall appear, the revival of the medieval Holy Roman Empire. We shall then be warned and readied to be taken to a place of refuge and safety from the Great Tribulation. Now he's talking about the 1335 days now, and 45 days later, 45 days after the 1335, that takes us to 1290, the beast armies will surround Jerusalem. 30 days later, that takes us to the 1260, the Great Tribulation will probably start with a nuclear attack on London and Britain. London is in Britain, on London and the rest of Britain, and possibly the same day or immediately after on the cities in the United States and Canadian cities. Then from the Good News, January 1980, in a section entitled "The Time We Are In Now," Mr. Armstrong says this. Some of it repeats, but some of it's different. Now, never before have we understood these periods of 1,260 days, 1,290 days, and 1,335 days. But it seems evident now a blessing is pronounced on us, God's church, who wait and endure until the 1,335 days, approximately 1,335 days prior to Christ's coming. Mr. Armstrong is being careful because of how Christ said in Matthew 24, "No man knows the day or the hour of Christ's coming." Day or the hour, yeah. And he says that right here, picking back up, quoting Mr. Armstrong. "But since no one can know the day or the hour of his coming, we probably shall not be able to know the exact day that this 1,335 days begins." Let me break from the article for a moment. Let me wait till it mentions the time of Jacob's trouble, because I want to share something with you from current news, and something that a friend of mine is saying, but I'll get to, let's stay with Mr. Armstrong for a moment. Quoting Mr. Armstrong, but from the Good News now. Continuing Good News article. "But apparently that is the time when our work shall end." And remember, brethren, in a big sense, Mr. Armstrong's work has not ended for several reasons, one of which his broadcast, his Bible studies, his sermons are easily available still on the internet. God has caused them to be well preserved. And his was a media ministry, and that media is still available, more so than it was before, because it's available on demand. Now, people used to have to wait until a broadcast was on before they could hear Mr. Armstrong. Now they can, on demand, find him on the internet, and just middle of the night, 3:30 a.m. in the morning, can play Mr. Armstrong and pick the subject, not have to listen to the subject that was the subject of the day on a given broadcast. They can go through all the things that Mr. Armstrong spoke about, and pick what they want to hear about. Continuing on from the Good News, 1980 January, referring to the time when the 1260 starts. "That will be a time when the United Europe shall appear, the revival of the medieval Holy Roman Empire. We shall then be warned and ready to be taken to a place of refuge and safety from the Great Tribulation." kind of repeating what he said in the PGR, but it's good for emphasis, because to get it, emphasis can be helpful. Continuing, 45 days later, the beast armies will surround Jerusalem. 35 days later, the Great Tribulation will probably start with a nuclear attack on London and Britain, and possibly the same day or immediately after on the United States and Canadian cities. This is basically just repeating what he said in the PGR report, having put that into the good news. The Great Tribulation, we shall then fully realize, but he adds this was not in the PGR. The Great Tribulation, we shall then fully realize, is the time of Jacob's trouble, spoken of in Jeremiah 30, verse 7. And Jacob's name was named on Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, Genesis 48, verse 16. At that time, a third of the people in our nations will die, or shall have died, by famine and disease epidemics. Another third will die of the war, our cities being destroyed, Ezekiel 6, verse 6. Ezekiel 6, chapter 6, verse 6, mentioning that your cities shall be laid waste if the people of the nation refuse to repent and heed diligently God's voice, as he says we should do in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, to be blessed. Or just the opposite of the blessings. If we don't, 7 times worse the curses than the breaking of the pride of our power. And then Ezekiel 6:6, the laying waste of our cities. And the remaining third of the people who don't die from all that will be carried to the land of our enemies as slaves, Ezekiel 5, verse 12. And perhaps they'll be carried away before all the cities are laid waste, since Ezekiel 5 is before Ezekiel 6. But then from the good news, and maybe not, we don't know that. Good news, a different article in the 1980 January Good News, in the section that's entitled, "The Time Has Come for Fasting and Prayer." Mr. Armstrong in that section says, "It now appears likely that God's present work through us will come to an end 1,335 days before the approximate date of Christ's return in supreme power and glory. It appears Christ's return being in power and glory. It appears let me try that sentence again, friends. It appears the Roman European armies will surround and take half of the city of Jerusalem 45 days later, and the Great Tribulation will begin 30 days after that, and the Great Tribulation, running parallel to the worldwide telecast of the two witnesses, Revelation 11, will last approximately 3.5 years, which is same as 1,260 days. Continuing quoting Mr. Armstrong, 1980 January Good News in this article. "Now, take what I've printed. Some weeks, 4 or 5, 6 months ago now." Well, actually, this is from this video from the Bible study. I believe it was in the Worldwide News of the Good News. Yeah, I had the 1260, the 1290, the 1,335 days of Daniel 12. Put some of these things together. Put a lot of these things together. And with the great, put them together, and with the Great Tribulation and all these prophecies, putting them together, they're all beginning to come in and fit into a certain picture right now. We've never had them straightened out before. And Mr. Armstrong said, "I've never claimed that I've gotten everything straightened out yet." He said that in kind of a humorous way, a very humble and loving way. And God, what we have, brethren, God has given to us through Mr. Armstrong. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and try putting a huge jigsaw puzzle together by yourself. It helps when you got somebody, not only somebody helping you, but somebody who's guided and who is given by God how it's supposed to fit and how to figure it out. And then once they do that, you can look at it and see, well, yeah, that makes a certain picture. But until somebody's put that together for you, you try to put it together yourself. It's been done for us. It's been handed to us on a silver platter. And, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and take this call from my friend Sam, because we're going to talk together. And Sam, I told the people on the air that I'd go ahead and take this call from you. I'm on the air, so you be aware of that right now, because I'm going to share this with you, this video with you and Dan later. So did you hear me earlier when I mentioned to you I'd be leaving in about 10 minutes from now to drive down?
Okay.
That sound good? You're at the restaurant now, right?
Yeah,
You're at the huddle. Okie doke.
Okay. I'll see you.
Okay, I'll see you there, buddy. Okay, friends. Brethren, one of the reasons why I came on earlier today was so that I could meet up with a couple of handicapped fellows. The fellow that just called me is legally blind. He can't drive himself, so he had somebody drive him over to a Huddle House restaurant near his home, which is warm. Alabama's in an extreme cold situation right now. In fact, it's so cold here that I wasn't able to get the studio warmed up ahead of time so that it feels comfortable, even with the hot lights in here on. It's a little cool in here. But I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to get on early so the people in the UK that might want to tune in here on the Sabbath can do it while we're still on the Sabbath. And in other places too, while it's still the Sabbath ahead of time, and then put it on the internet, and it'll be there for all of you that want to watch from the United States, and then I can get out and do a little fellowshipping with a couple of handicapped fellows. But Mr. Armstrong said, God is still revealing truth to me. And you know, some of the things that Mr. Armstrong said back in 1980, they're more relevant today than when he said them back then. Much more relevant today. Things have come together about what he told us to watch for, what Christ told us would, through Mr. Armstrong, God helped us to understand what Christ was saying and how Matthew 24, plain language, is the seals of Revelation 6. But Mr. Armstrong said it's about time a lot of us begin to wake up and realize that the truths we got them through Mr. Armstrong. We'll be covering that more in helpful ways here, both on the Sabbath and during our weeknight live video stream we call Nightcast. I'm kind of thinking, brethren, about changing the name of that to World Watch, because some nuts got the, without doing anything with it, they've got the unhyphenated version of Nightcast all tied up. So for that reason, you know, we had no big reason for calling it Nightcast. We did pray about it, and we kind of, Mr. Collins and I kind of picked that to relate to Nightline, because we'd be doing, you know, live daily news reports, and we thought, oh, we'll just, since it's a webcast and it's at night, we'll call it Nightcast, you know, and it'd be sound kind of similar to Nightline. But there ain't no big deal in that, you know. We've been doing it that way for a long time, but Gene Hogberg is a good friend of mine. He used to write an article called World Watch. We were able to get the worldwatch.tv web name, and I kind of like that. So I'm thinking about that. I appreciate your prayers about some of the changes we make, and I hope none of you are offended. We will not change the name. We are changing the Alpha Studio. We're having new studio worked up, and hope you like that. We're trying to make things a little more professional looking here, and a little more easy atmosphere. Pull back, you know. We're working on this. We'll have a couple screens, so I can easily go from one story to another a little easier, make it more dynamic for you. But back to what Mr. Armstrong was saying. By the way, the new studio, we're still working on it. We're not using it on Nightcast or World Watch yet until we get some new equipment. But I'm trying it out here on the Sabbath today. But Mr. Armstrong went on to say, we are the church that will be taken to a place of protection where we will be fed. That we are those of us who are accounted worthy just because you're in the church. And by the way, you know, interestingly, friends, the church of God allows into the church of God tares that Satan brings in. He says, Don't even try to harvest them out, and don't try to put them out until the harvest. Sometimes you can't know who they are anyway, except they're doing things. Now the apostasy flushed out a lot of that, so that's kind of a pre-harvest flush in a way. But those who, just because you're in the church, even the Laodicean era is part of the church. An era that Mr. Armstrong said would come after Philadelphia is taken to a place of safety. That's what Mr. Armstrong said on it. Some of you argue about that, but you're arguing not against me. You're arguing against what God told us through the apostle, our pastor general. And doctrine, we're going to go through an article he did in the PGR about, and then I think he may have printed it in the Good News too. Some of you may can find that. Doctrine in the church comes through the apostle. So, and that's a doctrine, and it's provable doctrine. I mean, it squares with, I've gone through that before, and I got to go pick up these guys, but, it hits some of my hot buttons sometimes when you get to some things. Those who are accounted worthy, those who are not accounted worthy can still make it. They'll just have to go through the great tribulation and be willing to do as Jesus Christ did. Not be crucified, but in a sense be crucified, but be a martyr as Christ was, and give your life. That's when Christ will come and knock. That's when the knock comes. He says, look, I went through the crucifixion. I was a martyr. You were lukewarm and had to be left behind to prove to get you in shape. You're going to have to do what I did now, but endure it. Endure the martyrdom. However they torture you first and then kill you. And then you'll be at my marriage supper table with the rest of the saints who had it easier because they put the pressure on themselves during the Philadelphia era and watched and prayed and kept a right attitude about it all and were accounted worthy to escape. You lukewarm people who, you might have studied and knew a lot of stuff, but you weren't acting on it from your heart, you weren't praying enough, and I had to leave you behind. I have to see a little more fire in you, and you may have to go through the fire and become a martyr to make it. But if you do that and endure, you'll make it. You'll be at the marriage supper and be able to be married to Jesus Christ with the rest of them. And in fact, if you're martyred, you come up first. So Laodicea has a certain glory. Yeah, some of you that toot it, yeah. But I tell you, while you've got the opportunity to still be a part of Philadelphia and be accounted worthy to escape with Philadelphia, it'd be well worth your fasting and praying and really pouring into it and watching. Come in there, tune in with us every night, Sunday through Thursday. Tune in live if you can. I'm trying to be sure we get it on time. And if not, watch it on demand in the archive. Be sure you know the pertinent stories each day. But Mr. Armstrong says we can be taken to a place of protection where we will be fed and nourished. Now, he asked how? He says, I don't know how we're going to get there. Christ says God says we'll be flown on the two wings of an eagle. Whatever that means, whether by airplanes or literal or fires of chariots of fire or literally brings huge eagles to grab each one of us. Mr. Armstrong says, I don't know. If we were in what we picture we're all in one place, and we're scattered now anyway. God picks us up and takes us all to some other place on earth. But listen, the church is all over the world. The church is over in the Philippines. The church is part of it, individual members, but no organized church in Japan. Oh, we're no organized church really anymore. We're scattered. I mean, there are some ministers that have set up little organized flocks, some of them big flocks, but we're still scattered. Everybody's not in, any one minister's little organized group or big organized group. There's hundreds of them. The church is down in Malaysia. The church is in Singapore, Mr. Armstrong says. The church is in South Africa. The church is in Australia, and the church is in New Zealand. The church is in the islands of the Pacific. The church is in Canada and in the United States. The church is in England. I'm reading from his article, friends. The church is all over Europe. The church is in different places all over Africa. The church is up in Scandinavia. Well, where are we going to go? Where are we going to where are we going to pick us all up in a group? Brethren, it's time for us to begin to think a little about that, because definitely the Bible says we are to be given the 2 wings of a great eagle to go into the wilderness, into our place. But remember, Satan is real, and we are going to be protected from Satan. Those who are accounted worthy, that is. Mr. Armstrong says, now, Satan has never struck at the church as a whole. The church as a whole has never been persecuted until 1979, when the state of California hit us with that lawsuit. That was against the church as a whole. We've had persecutions against individuals, and I've been persecuted, and the leadership of the church has been persecuted, but the church as a whole has not until then. So we're very close to the time of being taken to the place of safety. Now then, and his words that he spoke in 1980, friends, are more relevant in what he said today than then. Now then, out comes, after we're gone out of the Great Tribulation, and they've been in the Great Tribulation, the 144,000 and this other great innumerable multitude. Who are these? They are they which came out of the great tribulation and have washed their robes and been made white. The Laodicean church are those who are going to come. They are going to find. Someone is going to lead them. And the church will not rise up and will not be actually formed until after we have gone into a place of protection and after our work is finished and our time is over. It's not going to be contemporaneous with us. It will come after us. Now, I've never said that before. We've never had this straight before. We've never understood it. And I've never come out with a definite doctrine on it before, because we've never understood it before. But God is revealing it to me now. He was speaking in 1980. Now take what I've printed, some weeks, 4, 5, 6 months ago now. I believe it was in the Worldwide News, the Good News. I had the 1260, the 1290, the 1335 days of Daniel 12. Put some of those things together, put a lot of those things together. And with the Great Tribulation and all these prophecies, they're all beginning to come in and fit into a certain picture right now. Brethren, I wanted to give you that encouragement, because that's not something, we don't want to speculate, some people say. Well, you want to meditate, and you want to think about these things, and as Mr. Armstrong said, put these things together. So be thinking about them, be praying about them. Some believe that what Mr. Armstrong mentioned a moment ago about the time of Jacob's trouble, Mr. Armstrong, in some writings were comparing to what happened to France as the beginning of Jacob's trouble. And that there are some who've written me who believe that Christ will return on the Feast of Trumpets in 2018, and you count back 1,335 from that, and that puts you into this month, this year, January 2015. So if the beginning of Jacob's trouble is kind of being kicked off with what happened in France this week, in the next few days might be a good time to be fasting and praying, friends, because if God is starting that 1,335 clock sometime this month, you don't want to be caught off guard, because 45 days later, the armies will surround Jerusalem, and between that time and the 1260, somehow you'd better be accounted worthy, because God is going to have those who are accounted worthy picked up and flown by 2 wings of a great eagle, whatever that is, to a place in the wilderness where you be protected. And you will not be able to get there if you're not accounted worthy. There are going to be no tares over there, I don't think. No, yeah. So, because you only get there if you're accounted worthy, and you carried on the 2 wings of a great eagle. Friends, I got to go pick up these brethren. And beside, this is something we need to study and pray and fast about. I encourage you to do that. I hope what we gave you here today has been helpful. I hope you have thanks for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful, happy Sabbath and a great week. I got to get out there and pick up these couple of handicapped fellows and sit down and fellowship with them this afternoon. So happy Sabbath, good week. Until next time, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth saying, Happy Sabbath, so long, friends.